Okay, what's today's podcast?
Today, I want to talk with you guys about the placebo effect.
Ooh.
Yeah, no, I find the placebo effect a really interesting topic, and I've been reading this book called You Are the Placebo.
Mm-hmm.
So it talks all about how the placebo effect works and how you could take advantage of this knowledge of the placebo effect and influence your physical and mental health. So I think a good start would just be to kind of go over what the placebo effect actually is. And like the most basic idea of the placebo effect is if you were to go to the doctor and they were to give you a medication, and this medication turns out to be like a sugar pill or something that doesn't actually have any active ingredients that are going to change anything in your body, but you don't know that. And so the doctor gives this medication to you, and they tell you, oh, this is going to fix your sleep or maybe your skin condition, whatever it is, some sort of condition. And you take that and you maybe get really excited and you end up taking the medication every night, and you're really, really happy that this doctor gave that to you. And you end up seeing some results. Your conditions kind of go away. But the really interesting thing is that your conditions will be going away not because of the actual medication, but because of your belief that the medication is going to work. And that belief leads you to certain thoughts and certain positive emotions, which end up, the positive emotions end up actually leading to real physical changes in your body.
Yeah.
And I find that like really fascinating, and if you were able to try to take advantage of that idea, I think it'd be like a superpower.
Yeah,
Modern day miracle.
It's so crazy how that works. I feel like I just had a placebo moment the other day. My teeth were like really hurting, and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to go to the dentist. They're probably gonna tell me I have like need a root canal or something, like my gums are hurting, and I was just like stressing about that, and like they were hurting all the time. And then I finally went to the dentist, and the dentist was like, I mentioned it to her, and she was like, looks good, I don't see anything, I think it's all healthy teeth. And then I was like, oh, okay. And then I feel like the pain went away. And like the weeks to follow, I was just like, yeah, it doesn't even hurt anymore.
Yeah.
Wow,
that's
and I was like, is that just a straight up in my mind? I was like being like making the pain in a sense.
Yeah, I feel like we have a lot of those things that are going on all the time. Maybe not as major as like dental pain, but like things like that. And what they would actually call that is a nocebo. Not a placebo. Like it's like a negative one. Placebo generally means like it's a positive outcome.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So nocebo,
nocebo.
That
sounds
happens
like a dance or something.
Yeah, yeah. But that happens probably just as much is where people are actually, their mind ends up creating problems. And one thing that leads to people maybe being able to take advantage of the placebos or nocebos, better or worse, depends on their suggestibility. And also like if you generally are like an optimistic or pessimistic person. So like if Kailey, let's say you're very, very optimistic and you're also very suggestible, and Sammy's maybe very pessimistic, and I give you a medication and it says this is going to make you sleep well, but there's a potential side effect that you're going to get stomach cramps. Kailey, you might take it and be like, and not even really be thinking about the cramps. You'd be like, oh my, I'm going to get a great sleep. This is awesome. Thanks for the medication. But you being maybe a bit more pessimistic, and you could be less suggestible too, which is which just means that you're not going to be as likely to believe these things. But you might be focusing on, I think I'm feeling the side effects of the stomach cramps. Like you take the medication and you start, because you're thinking about that, you're almost searching for stomach cramps. You're like, oh, I think that's it. That must be from me taking the medication.
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely a place in my mind I've been before.
Yeah.
Where you're like searching for the problems. Yeah.
One of the, I feel like a lot of how you react emotionally depends on your like previously developed associations between certain things. So like you could have an association between a certain time of day and that kind of swings your mood a little bit, or like a certain food. Food, I find a really interesting one where people for sure have associations between like, oh, that food's bad, and because of you thinking that it's bad, it could actually lead to you kind of responding in like a stressful manner, and that stress leading to problems.
So let's say I take the medication that says the side effects might be cramps.
Yeah.
And I'm like looking for the cramps. Like, is it just potentially bad because I'm stressing myself out? Or can I actually make like the cramps appear in a way by thinking about them?
Yeah, it would depend on, like, I think you could actually make cramps appear. There's a lot of things you can't make appear. Like,
right.
if like, let's say you have a nocebo and you think you're gonna have cancer,
Yeah.
and you're worried about, oh, I think I feel like cancer and stuff. You don't.
Cancer's not just gonna come around.
Yeah, I mean, maybe over a prolonged time, if for your life you've been for 30 years stressed about cancer, your odds of now getting cancer are actually higher.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah, that would just be because if you're stressed, it can lead to problems, and it can also
affects your
stress affects you negatively. So when I say that might happen, I don't know percentages or anything, but like I know that stress does lead to problems, and it can also signal certain genes within you, which is another thing that I found like really, really interesting, is that people have about 24,000 genes, and only about, I think it was like 5% of them are activated at any given time. And so those genes get activated by certain signals. So you could have like signals in your environment, like sunlight or like pollution, turn certain genes on or off. Oh. But you could also have the signal be something like an emotion. So stressful, if you're always stressed out, that could lead to turning certain genes on and off. And they've done studies where they had identical twins, so they have the exact same DNA. But as they went about their life, they experienced different things, they saw different things, they ate different foods, all these things. And I forget what age they were, but they're like 60 or 70 years old. They again analyzed what genes were being expressed in these two identical twins, and they were quite different actually. But if you were to look at identical twins when they're just born, the genetic expression is probably very, very similar. And what they saw is that as you get older, the genetic expression varies a lot.
That's interesting.
At one point, people used to think that your genes were kind of locked into place.
Yeah.
But you actually can alter them in certain ways.
For sure.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's so cool.
Yeah, there was a study about these Swedish men that were overweight and kind of like sedentary lifestyle. And within 6 months of doing exercise a few times a week, they were able to express 7,000 genes differently. And so like I feel like this,
so that are you, like those people, if they were going to conceive a baby, it would be a different baby in that 6 months earlier than it would be that state that they're in 6 months after.
Yeah, that's a really interesting part of it too, is that depending on your genetic expression at the time when you're having a baby, that'll lead to like different genetics being passed on.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I've heard that as well, that like if you're like working out a lot or doing all sorts of sporting activities, like while you're growing the baby is more likely to be more athletic, or
that's
possess
crazy.
More like there's something
like
about
obviously
that,
you're limited to your own potential genes, but you have, like I was saying, it's like 23,000 genes, and which ones are you activating and which ones are you suppressing, that can vary depending on lifestyle. So
cool.
You're not necessarily destined to certain genetics. Like obviously there's some things like your eye color and like a lot that is kind of locked into place, but the fact that you can vary some things I find really cool, and it almost opens up the door to like, or it expands on like when you think of you have so much potential.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is another layer to it. Like you actually genetically have some potential that you could tap into if you
it's
if you
kind
do
of
certain
inspiring
things.
to think about that.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yeah, it's really hard to change the way you do things and actually kind of tap into certain genetics though, and change the way your brain functions. And that's one thing that the book was talking a lot about on, is like, okay, we know it's possible to have these physical changes.
Yeah.
But why is it so difficult for people to make those changes? So let's say you were you were in a bad place and mentally, physically, whatever, you want to kind of break your certain your habits that you're doing right now, and you want to change things. Why is it so difficult? And they look at it from like a neuroscience point of view of how like new thoughts are developed and like existing thoughts are actually like shown in the brain. So when you have a new thought, it'll create like a new connection between neurons. And I don't want to dive too much into the science because I'm gonna end up saying some nonsense that
right,
because it would take me months to be able to speak about. Like I was reading the book, they talk about like neuropeptides and like all like the protein interactions and stuff, and it's like a little overwhelming.
Okay.
But the basic idea is that when you're thinking, you're essentially wiring new connections. And if you are if you're like 30 years old at this point, you've essentially wired a lot of the same connections over and over and over again. And let's say you go into an environment and your natural, the thing that let's say you go into like a public speaking environment, and the thing you've been thinking your entire lifetime is, oh, this is scary, I should not do this, I should run away. It's very hard when you've had that thought so well established for years and years and years to think something different. So when we place you in that environment and you're in front of the stage, it's hard to expect you to think something that you've never thought before, especially when this other thought of run away, this is a very scary thing to do, has been established in your mind for years and years and years and years and years and years. You could almost think of it like a river that each time you think it widens and gets like the flow is stronger and stronger.
I like
and
that.
Now you're trying to create a river where there's currently no water flowing, so it's very, very difficult. And it can be very uncomfortable, and that's why people, I think it was like you have something like 70,000 thoughts a day, but it tends to be that day after day your thoughts are the same as they were the days before, just because you almost look at your like brain circuitry as something that you've established over years. That it's almost like if you were to look on Google Maps, it's like the road works. The roads are already there. The map is already there. And people do have the ability to kind of modify the structure of your brain, but it's difficult. Like when things are established,
because it's faster too. Like it's like if your typical thought process for something is like the highway where you're going 100 kilometers an hour and it's so smooth and straight, and you just like instantly get to that thought, and you're like, well, yeah, that's what I'm thinking, so that must be true. Opposed to trying to rethink something which is like the dirt road that's like windy, and you're like, okay, uncharted territory, this is going to be a little bit, you kind of have to practice it and get used to it and kind of dig deeper to find that thought. But it can be done, and that's inspiring because it just takes practice to kind of like make a more well-trodden path or thought process in your brain. That's a good point, that like the well-trodden paths, they do feel so familiar, and it's like they'll fire quicker. Like it's almost like you're
comfort in it.
It's like when you're developing a skill, the more repetition you do it, the more effortless it is. So if you've wired that same circuit to say run away from public speaking, that's gonna come effortlessly, and it'll become so easily. But like a lot of, just like a skill, like if you were trying to ride a bike or whatever, and the more you do it, the more effortless it is. When you take time away from doing that, your skills actually start to deteriorate. So if you take time away from thinking these certain things that are problematic, those circuits will start to become less important because you're not keeping them up to date. So they're saying what you essentially want to do is stop doing and thinking the things that you don't want to do, so that those circuits can kind of deteriorate in a sense or fade away, and consistently be creating a new path so that you have a new alternative way to think and a new alternative way to behave.
Okay.
And I really like this idea that you could directly tie the discomfort that you feel when you're doing the new thing into thinking about, I'm actually creating new pathways here. So this is uncomfortable, but it's uncomfortable because I'm creating new pathways right now.
True. For sure. I like that too. I like that. So if it's like, if you think about it as public speaking, and let's say you don't feel confident yet, or you don't have much experience with it, instead of saying, I wish I was better at public speaking, or I need to practice more because I suck at public speaking right now, you really should be taking the positive route of speaking positively about it, saying, this is a really good opportunity for me to be able to public speak this weekend. This is, oh, look, I am very capable of learning more about public speaking. I can practice. This is a skill that can be learned, opposed to kind of like negative reinforcement, which is just being like, I suck right now, therefore I must get better. Because that in your brain is like, you're still being told that you suck. You're still telling yourself that you're not good. And so using the language of growth and positivity makes a difference.
And also, let's say you had a bad public speaking performance, and then you go home and you're thinking about it on the ride home. A lot of you thinking about it on the ride home, from your brain's perspective, is it not like there's not a clear difference from your brain's perspective between you actually being on the stage and saying it, or you remembering and visualizing yourself on the stage and how embarrassing it was. So you're reinforcing it by ruminating
it
later
over and over again.
And then you go home
reinforcing the paths.
And like you might go home and you'll tell your friends and your family, oh, it was so bad, it was so horrible, and you're reinforcing it more and more and more and more and more.
Wow.
And you doing that, you might, like, let's say you remember it a month later and it stimulates some of the stressful emotions. That could have a negative physical side effects. But the interesting part about that is that, what if you are doing a lot of positive visualization, and that positive visualization, especially if it leads to positive emotion, can start to lead to positive physical changes. So like if you're able to like visualize yourself performing well, you might be able to reverse it a little bit. Yeah.
Interesting.
So interesting, thinking about how much control you have over what goes on in your life.
Yeah. I'm just curious about control. In the book.
It's
true.
Very hard.
True. Yeah. You have to become conscious of it.
Visualization. Cause I had this little conversation earlier upstairs with somebody.
Okay.
So
just,
mysterious.
There's somebody.
There's somebody out there. But we were just talking about visualization, and kind of like what we were talking actually about placebo, but then like also the potential of visualization for things that are like, I guess like, I don't know. I was just curious if this book talks about it, almost like the manifesting kind of visualization, where there's like things almost like physical objects you want. And like, if you think about like getting those, and then eventually it leads you to it, like, is the placebo effect at all tied to anything like that?
Yeah, I think it definitely helps, because you know how when you experience positive emotions, or like a certain emotion that you enjoy, that kind of further develops like the habit cycle. Because let's say you eat chocolate and it makes you feel like relieved, or it makes you feel happy or whatever. If you are doing some positive visualization and you're thinking about a future in which you get something very beneficial, and that stimulates an emotional response, like a strong positive emotional response, that in a sense could build a habit for you to continue thinking like that, because you like when you think like that, because it makes you feel positive emotions. And that's how I find like the thought habits can get like really interesting, but like almost so hard to pinpoint. But how you could kind of be addicted to certain thoughts. You know what I mean?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Certain thoughts stimulate positive emotions, or maybe certain thoughts lead you to not necessarily positive, but certain thoughts might make you angry. And the anger part of it makes you feel like powerful or whatever. So you get addicted to that.
It's like
that
a little
feeling.
rush.
Yeah, you get addicted to that rush. So you're building a habit of thinking the same things. You're not. It's not the traditional way you think of habits of like, oh, I'm addicted to drinking or something. It's like, oh, I'm addicted to thinking these things, and I keep thinking these things over and over because they stimulate
something, a response in you. And
that's interesting to think that you get addicted to like negative thinking in a way.
Yeah,
if you're like, this group of people sucks and I'm better than them, and you're like, that made me feel kind of good to say that for a second, and then tomorrow you say it again.
Yeah, I know. It's honestly crazy how like when you think about it like that, how this will just repeat over and over. It can repeat over and over and over again, because you kind of get stuck in that roadway that you've built. You've built this like neural circuitry. Yeah. This like mental roadway that is refined and it's been played out over and over and over again. Yeah. And you take that with you everywhere you go, and you're hoping for something to be different, but it's so well established that it can be very challenging. And but the way to get out of it, as far as I could see, and what they're talking about in the book, is just becoming more aware of these thought habits and these patterns of thinking. Right. And that's like just meditation practice.
Yeah, even like what you were saying earlier, where it's like the when you have a negative experience public speaking or something like that, and just thinking about it in the way that it's like, oh, this is like something I've never done before, so it's like obviously I'm feeling the resistance. I feel like that can just be like so profound, because usually like how many times in my life have I been like, the brain tells me negative experience, so I just go, that was a bad thing for me to do.
Yeah. Same. I've done that in the past where it's like a cut and dry, I'm not good at that, oh, that sucked, I don't want to do that again. And reframing that, oh, I just haven't done it enough yet, oh, I just haven't experienced it with a more positive attitude yet, more practice. It's it's interesting.
Like, how many things are you telling yourself that end up, I don't know, like you just accept them for what they are? And how many of those things, many. Especially like if you have so many and you take all 2,500 of them, whatever it is, how many of these things are, and each individual one is causing you a little bit of stress. Yeah. And now when you pile them all on, you're stressed out all the time. You're always in fight or flight mode. That's when you start to like see a lot of the placebo effect, where you're physically seeing changes.
Yeah, I was just thinking of a common one that maybe other people will relate to, that I was thinking that I always go into this situation being like, I hate this and this won't go well, is small talk with people. I always think I'm not good at small talk. I get awkward, and it always seems awkward, and I don't enjoy small talk. And it's like, what like maybe, like, why do I keep saying that? Maybe I'm just reconfirming that every single time, because I'm already going into a conversation where I've already decided that it'll be negative.
Yeah. And you see like somebody on the road, and you're like, this is gonna be awkward.
Yeah. On the road.
On the street.
And then you meet them. You say, how's it going? And they say, good. You? And then you say, not much. And then
not much. But you really are priming yourself for it to be whatever way you think. Like physically, you're at least priming yourself. Like if you go into it, be like, this is gonna be bad. Yeah. You're almost preparing it. You're like putting yourself in like the fight or flight mode, in a sense. Like you're ready to flee. Like you're like, I want to get out of here quick. Yeah. And maybe your posture shows that a little bit too. You're like, I gotta bounce out of this small talk quick. Like so. But there's so many of those that we have, and there's so many of them that are deeply, deeply rooted, where we've literally been doing it for years, and it's so ingrained, like etched into a stone.
Totally. I'm right now just thinking of like starting as much as even when I wake up, or like what happens in my day, and too often I feel like I've already like hit a roadblock, because in my head, it's like, nope, we don't do that, or we're not good at that. We don't go there. And yeah. Being conscious of it, like you said, meditating is helpful. Also, just taking, whenever you think of it throughout a day, whether it's once a day or if you think about it more times, just being fully present. So when you think about it, when you think about, oh, what's happening right now, just kind of think, what am I looking at? How is my body feeling? What am I thinking? And I feel like that helps make you just more conscious in life in general when you practice starting with once a day or more, taking in the moment and what's really going on. I've been trying to do that more. Not sometimes I set a timer, and then whenever the timer goes off, it'll just be like, oh, okay, what's happening right now? Like, what am I feeling in my body? What are my thoughts? What's going on around me? And that helps me, I think, just be more conscious in life. Just be more conscious of what's going on, what my body's doing, how fast my thoughts are often racing.
Yeah, I think you almost want to develop like a bit of a filter, maybe, or like some sort of analysis for your thoughts. Like, let's say you go into that situation, Kailey, like you were talking about with the small talk, and someone comes up to you and you're like, you were like, okay, here we go, small talk, and you say to yourself, this is gonna be horrible, like I'm really bad at this. Ideally you want to be aware of that thinking, and you're in a sense thinking about your own thoughts. Yes. Which they, in the book, they call that metacognition, thinking about thinking. And that's something you want to try to get better at, is thinking about, okay, why am I saying that I'm really bad at small talk, and how is that making me feel, and thinking about it in a non-judgmental way too. Like, you don't want to be like, I'm so bad, and I always think this. Why do I always think this? I'm so stupid. What, like, you know what I mean? So you want to be essentially evaluating all your thoughts for two things. I feel like you want to be evaluating the thought for how true is this thing, and also how useful is this thing to be thinking. So is it true that I'm really bad at small talk? Maybe you're being hard on yourself, and it's not entirely true. And how useful is it to think that you're bad at small talk? Not very useful at all, because it's likely going to make you worse in this situation. And so the truth is shaky and the utility is not there, and that evaluation could help you maybe get rid of that type of thinking, especially if you're able to catch it over and over and over again, and you feel good about catching it. So then now you have a bit of a habit of it's good when I catch my thoughts, and I'm gonna keep doing this because I feel good about it when I do it. And so that way you're like taking advantage of the habit thing. All right. But there's layers.
Put me in, coach. I'll do the small talk. That's really true. I could see that being helpful, because for some reason small talk seems scary to me now. It's like, oh no, like what will we talk about? And that you're right, when you break it down or think about like taking the time while I'm in a small talk conversation to say, okay, what's going on in my body? Like, is this necessary? Like, why am I going into fight or flight mode when we're talking about the weather? Like, be present. You can get through it. You're talking about the weather. Like, it's okay.
It's so established in your mind that that's what happens when a small talk situation comes up for years and years. And then I think it comes, why it's so hard to convince yourself otherwise is because that circuit's not there. That circuit of you saying, small talk, fire me up.
I've never walked that path before. I've never
that
trodden
does
down
not
that
exist in
meadow.
your brain, and developing it is going to take consistency, and consistently basically like unwiring that other circuit you made, and consistently trying to wire the circuit you want. And that'll take just a lot of repetition, really. And it's kind of like the
action, right? Like you couldn't just think yourself better at
maybe to
think
an
yourself
extent.
to better at being good at small talk.
So I think you could, in a sense, through positive visualization. Like, if you're always visualizing yourself in these small talk scenarios
at a
and them
barbecue in
going
someone's
really
backyard and being like, ha ha ha. Yes, the weather. Oh my
fantastic.
goodness.
I'll see you later.
Yeah. So if you're always doing that, like thinking about barbecues like that, in a sense, for your brain's sake, you did have that experience to a certain degree. Like there might be like strengths where like the real things may be a bit more powerful. I'm not really sure, but to a certain degree, you actually are having those scenarios lay out in your mind, and those circuits are getting established a little bit, where you're now convincing yourself, they always go out well because you're playing them out in your own mind. But I think in a sense you could actually do that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a really fascinating topic. I find, and this maybe is a bit of a unique podcast, just because like I've been reading this book for quite a while now, so it's more like I'm probably talking like a lot in this podcast in comparison to some of the other ones where it's a bit more free flowing, like a bit more of a discussion. But
I like that though, because I like learning about this stuff. It's like
placebos are so cool. Like, just blows my mind every time I hear of some study or some type of thing that explains placebos further than the knowledge I already have of it. I'm like constantly in awe of the way it works.
They're so powerful. And apparently when scientists first found out about it, it was never really assumed that you could think certain ways and actually influence the physical health of your body. But they started seeing this play out, and now it's come to the point where placebos could be so powerful where whenever they're doing drug testing, they do I think it's called double-blind control trials, something like that. But essentially what they do is they have, or it's like double-blind randomized control trial, where it's randomized because they have an active drug that is supposed to do the thing that they want it to do, and they also have a container of placebo, and they randomly distribute that out to the subjects that are going to take it. And they say it's double blind because the subjects that are taking it don't know, but also the researchers that are collecting the data, they don't know who took what either. So it's not influenced. There's no biases or anything, ideally, because nobody knows who took what. So when the researchers are collecting the data, they're not sure. Oh, this guy seemed to get some positive benefits. I have no idea if he took the placebo or did he take the real thing. So ideally only when the placebo clearly was not as good as the drug, that's when drugs get put on the market, because it's like, this clearly actually has an effect beyond what a placebo could ever have.
Right.
And now we'll put this drug out there because it's doing things that are past what a placebo could do.
Right. So are there drugs on the market potentially that are just placebos and they're not telling us?
Maybe, who knows? I mean, I know they say that,
and they're potentially working, right? Because it's so crazy.
That's the thing.
That
why stop it if it works, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think
could be working.
Are superfoods kind of like placebos? Because I hear things about what is like quote unquote superfoods. I guess you think of like avocados, quinoa, kale, those like really trendy foods for a long time. And I listened to a few podcasts and just seen some things from both doctors and nutritionists who say that superfoods don't exist. Like there's nothing that's like there's some miracle food that does it all.
Right.
But what might actually be happening is that it's part placebo. People have avocado toast and are like, I can conquer the world. And it's like, well, it doesn't really matter then if it's a superfood or not. If you're like feeling better and you're feeling good about what you're putting in your body,
then it is a superfood.
Then it is a superfood. Yeah. So it's
Yeah. Well, I think with a lot of foods, what it is that the actual food itself could have some benefits or downsides, but you're thinking about the food could enhance that. So, like, let's say you eat that avocado toast, and it genuinely does have some good things for you.
Yeah.
But you finish the toast, and you're like feeling really happy about it. You're like, I'm gonna have the best day now because I ate this toast and I ate that avocado. It's so good for me. And you're just really hyping yourself up. You might actually be enhancing the effects, whereas now you're feeling you get more benefit out of it just because you believe it's so powerful.
That's so cool.
And then that's basically that's the basic way placebo works, is you take a medication, you believe it's doing something really good.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It ends up helping you a lot. So avocado, maybe it is doing some good for your body, but you believe it's doing more than what that.
Yeah.
And you actually do get some other benefits. You can't say exactly what the benefits would be.
Yeah, I can't quantify them, but
because now that you mention it, I feel like I do the opposite all the time. With like, I'll be like, man, I ate 2 pizzas last night. I'll be like, I'm gonna feel like garbage now.
Hey, it's funny you say that, Sammy, because Ollie, a couple years ago, Ollie told me, if you are stressing about eating, let's say you only want to eat 1 cookie and then you end up eating 2, and you're doing more damage to your body when you're stressing about and ruminating over eating 2 cookies than if you just ate the 2 cookies and were like, sick, I had 2 cookies and walked away from the situation.
Yeah.
Really?
Is that a nocebo?
That'd be a nocebo.
Right.
And it's hard to say like how much worse exactly. Like we can't really say like, oh, it's twice as bad or anything. But like, I feel like it for sure is enhancing the negative effects. Like I was actually thinking about that. I that happens to me a fair bit with food actually.
Yeah, because you'll be eating all this junk food and you'll be like, oh, I shouldn't be eating this, shouldn't be doing this, and then you just keep eating it and you're like, oh, it's bad for me.
Right, you should just eat it.
You're getting
and then
so
go,
stressed
it's okay.
out about it.
Yeah, because the stress is so bad for you. It's so bad for you because we can't quantify it. I don't think it's like something that you can't say, oh yeah, this is how much sugar you should have it in a day, this is how much stress you should have in a day. Anything more than that is going to cause all sorts of physical issues. But that's the truth. We just don't know what's each person's stress level is.
Yeah, and the stress, like I was saying at the beginning, can, like if you're doing that, it can actually lead to different expression of your genetics. So that's why it's a pretty powerful thing. But even before this podcast, I had that pizza example where like I was just about to eat this pizza and I'm thinking, oh no, I don't know if I should do this because it's gonna make me kind of slow, like I'll be tired, like mentally, physically. I had an association with pizza and being physically tired and mentally slow. And then I went to eat it and I'm like, what if I try to not have that association? And yes, maybe pizza, like I don't want to ignore biology. Maybe you do eat all that all the carbs and all the cheese and it actually does kind of mess with your head a bit. Yeah. But a lot of it could just be my association that I was having with the pizza, or it at least enhances the negative side effects. Like we could say, sure, there are negative side effects from eating 7 slices of pizza, but you thinking so bad about it will actually cause stress and make you even more unhealthy.
Yeah, I need to get over that. So I only eat natural peanut butter, and if I'm ever at someone's house or someone offers me peanut butter, and like I love peanut butter, if they offer me not natural peanut butter, I go into like alarm bells. It's like, I can't eat that. Are you kidding? There's so much sugar in peanut butter if it's not natural. And it's like, if I eat it, it's like I'm in my head so aware that it's like, oh my gosh, I just ate this peanut butter. This is really bad. This is really bad. But I just need to just be like, wait, it's okay.
Yeah. And like ideally you'd think, oh, this is going to be even better.
I know. Ideally I could enjoy myself and be like, oh, a little treat.
There are like, I mean, it does have a lot of sugar in it.
Well, right? For sure. And that's what I mean. When people offer it to me though, I'm like let's say every 6 months someone goes, oh, you want peanut butter with that? And it's like every 6 months I can eat.
Does that happen every 6 months?
Yeah, approximately. And so I should be, it's not that I'm going to start buying peanut butter with sugar in it and start just going, you know what, screw it. Let me just enjoy my life and eat this peanut butter every day. No, I like in my own day-to-day lifestyle, I want to continue eating natural peanut butter. However, I am so like, I have such stressful thoughts about eating peanut butter with sugar in it that if I'm offered it, I am like, no, not even once every 6 months. Like,
like I feel like things like that could happen where if you associate sugar and feeling tired, or maybe even like you associate it with like itchiness or whatever, or like things like that, what could actually happen is before you even eat the thing, you start to think in that way, and then now you start to feel tired. You're like, oh, I think I'm itching. It's like the sugar. And that would be clearly it's you thinking about the sugar and not the sugar because you haven't even eaten it yet.
I think
and you could feel bad about peanut butter before you even eaten it.
I feel like that happens. Sammy, you have allergies as well. Do you find that if you see things floating in the air like pollen or little grass particles, you're like you like start wheezing, you're like the allergies are bad today. But it's like, okay, it's just because I'm visually seeing things floating in the air.
That'll definitely happen. And sometimes I will not even be thinking about my allergies, and then somebody else will be like, man, my allergies are so bad, and then I'll be like, oh yeah, mine too.
Right.
And then I'm like,
true.
Yeah, I have allergies too. But that kind of what you were talking about with like the peanut butter and feeling like you really don't like it or whatever, and like the placebo, like I feel like that you definitely get that, and on like the other side of the coin with like almost like feeling like you need certain things to do stuff, and like maybe that even is like physical, like kind of substance abuse kind of things in a way. You're like, I'm not going to be able to talk to these people unless I have this beer first or something.
Right.
Or like whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
A lot of NHL hockey players have these crazy rituals they do before the game.
Right.
Like they're like, I have to eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich at 4:00, and then I like go play soccer, or like a lot of them play like keep it up with a soccer ball, or like they have these things. I know like Jonathan Taves, I'm pretty sure he has like a 2-hour ritual before every game.
Oh my god.
And it's all just to make sure that once he finishes it, he's like, I'm primed to play hockey now.
But it's really, it's almost like he's just it's mental, right? It's all mental.
Yeah, it really is. But
I feel like I'm like that with a run. I'm like, oh, I have to stretch and warm up and do all this stuff, and it has to be like the perfect temperature outside, and I have to have drank water like at this amount, and then
10 minutes before, no earlier, no less. Otherwise,
like not too much, but I could see how that happens to me sometimes, where I maybe am making up requirements for something that aren't real.
Yeah, and like with that peanut butter example, like we don't want to be kind of ignoring the actual biology of, okay, this sugar, it actually is worse for you. But I think the line is like, if you're going to be eating that sugary food, leave the bad side effects from the actual food itself, and don't add anything on.
That's
you know what I mean? Don't add any stress. So it's like, yes, maybe the natural peanut butter is healthier for you, but your friend just cooked you up a nice piece of toast with the other peanut butter on it. Yeah. And you're gonna eat it. You don't want to be rude or whatever, and so you're going to eat it. Let's not double down. I think I think in the book and in the scientific community, they refer to that as the double whammy. So like you're essentially getting the bad side effects from the food itself, and then you're doubling down, you're getting another dose of stress and bad.
But the thing is, like, does it potentially have a benefit to feel that bad in the way that like
it will stop me from always having treats or something,
eating the sugar all the time?
Yeah, but okay, here's the thing for me, that I once had plain toast because I didn't want to eat that peanut butter. Yeah. And then I like visualized eating that peanut butter and was like, oh my gosh, that would have been bad if I had all that sugar. I don't want that peanut butter. So I probably did the damage, and then spent time thinking about how I didn't want to eat this plain toast, but I had to now because it's like I'm not going to eat that peanut butter. And then I was just stressed. No, because that's another one of my things. It's like I don't like butter, so it's
you did the damage and you didn't even get the reward of the tasty.
And
peanut
then
butter.
I was stressed about thinking about, oh no, I shouldn't have that peanut butter. So then it was like stressful reinforcement.
I could just picture you all stressed out eating a dry piece of toast. You're like, oh my goodness. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that is a good point, Sammy, about like these negative associations, they are also keeping you from eating those things. And
that's why Kailey only has natural stocked in her cupboards.
That is why like you run from the Kraft peanut butter when you see it at the grocery store.
Yeah, Kraft has a nice natural peanut butter.
Oh, that is true too.
Kraft's
actually,
never gonna sponsor us now.
Yeah,
but
we lost a big sponsor opportunity. Unfortunate.
Let us know in the comments what you like better, natural peanut butter or other type.
Yeah.
Is Kailey over exaggerating? would you have also eaten a dry piece of toast?
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like there's so many. One that happens to me, and that was happening to me the other day, is the mosquito one, where like you get bit by one mosquito.
Oh yeah.
And then now you're on high alert for mosquitoes, and like I feel like you're starting to mosquitoes are biting you all over.
Yeah.
Like, have you guys ever swatted and then you look and there was nothing there?
Yeah. Oh, I'll do that all the time. Where like I'll be walking in the forest or something, and then in my head, I'll just like think of like a spider or something. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I feel something like, I'm like, what is that?
Yeah, yeah.
And then I'll be like, oh man, it's probably just because I thought about spiders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like almost insanely powerful how powerful your thoughts are. How I could just think there's a mosquito on my leg and now I'm feeling an itchy sensation. It's like, that's I don't know, pretty crazy. Like you could just think spider and
Can I share that example? I've shared it with both of you, and Ollie, you knew it before I'd even shared it, about the the research experiment that was done on the elderly men. So this is like a perfect placebo. It was done on men, I believe they were 70 years old, or approximately 70 years old, and they were, for 1 week, spent a week in an apartment that looked like it was from 20 years prior. So if it was the 90s when the study was done, the apartment was to replicate the 70s, and even the magazines on the table were from the 70s. Everything was from the 70s, and the only thing that was odd about this apartment was that there were no mirrors, but instead of mirrors, there were pictures of the men from 20 years prior, from them in the 70s. This is confusing. They were 70. They were supposed to think like they were 50 in the 70s. And what happened at the end of the week of the study is across the board, in every physical category, the men ranked higher in physical ability. They weren't as stooped over. Their posture was better. They looked younger. When other people outside of the experiment were shown pictures, and they all said the men, after 1 week in this apartment that was supposed to be them 20 years younger, ranked them younger as looking younger.
Right.
I just think that's so fascinating, because they were told, like, think as if you're 20 years younger, and physically they changed.
Yeah, it's insane.
That's wild. That's like a really similar study. I don't remember the exact specifics, but it was with younger people, and they kind of like a similar thing but opposite. And like one group, they just really reminded them how short life is and that they're gonna get old soon. And then the other group, they did the opposite. And then the group that was reminded of how like they're gonna get really old, they walked slower down the hallway leaving the place.
Really?
Which was like, that's what the experiment was. And the other people were all like, let's go, we're young.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so interesting.
Yeah, that is crazy. Yeah, because you and on that point, like, how many of those things are we currently having? Like, do you like think, oh, I'm getting old now, and that's actually influencing your behavior? Or like, how could we personally be taking advantage of this understanding of how our mind can actually really have significant impacts on our body?
Yeah.
Like,
I think it starts with being conscious, being more conscious of yourself, being more conscious of your thoughts, because that's where it starts, is first an understanding of where are you at, what's your baseline right now. Are you in a mindset where you're restricting yourself in so many ways, and where are your thoughts tending to go? What are the patterns that you've already created in your brain that are so natural and maybe too well trodden? What do you call that? Like what?
Like what you like, want to figure out what are your associations that you have, and are some of those serving you well? So like, do you have a weird association with peanut butter, or do you have like
it's a little judgmental?
No, not you particularly.
I wasn't talking about you.
In general, but like even like very, very small associations that could stimulate a physical response. Like if I'm like, Kailey, that might stimulate a like a little bit of alertness. You have association between that word, Kailey, and I gotta pay attention.
Yeah.
Or like,
well,
Sammy,
I don't like confrontation or people being upset with me.
Right.
So it doesn't even matter if I know why someone's upset or whether it's justified. If I hear a negative tone or that someone's upset, I will immediately go into the like, how do we fix this right away?
Yeah. And like words or phrases, those will have associations and legit impacts. Like you're saying, if someone yells Kailey, you might actually start to get stressed out and go into more defensive mode. Or like if I say to Sammy, like, Sammy, pizza just arrived, let's go.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you're all excited and fired up. And so that sentence provoked something in Sammy to be excited and happy, and now he's his genetics are being regulated in a positive way.
Yeah, that's an interesting one too, especially like specifically pizza, because I feel like I feel like ingrained in probably a lot of people, not just me. It's like pizza is like such a good reward. Like when after your soccer tournament or whatever, it's like we're getting pizza, or it's like Friday night.
Yeah.
And now I feel like in my life, like that mention of the pizza when somebody will say like, "You want to get some pizza tonight?" is so much better than the actual pizza.
Right.
Like once it comes, I'm just like, I don't know if I even like this.
And maybe once it comes, you start to feel more of the negative association of like, oh, this is not good for me.
And you see the shimmer of the grease on top.
So the idea is like
your
really
reflection.
What you want.
You're staring back at yourself in the.
Yeah, but the idea will make me feel really good.
Yeah, same with me. Pizza, like moving day, you get pizza. You just Friday nights for sure. Love pizza.
But what I want to know is, can I physically change like my body in the sense just by thinking, like in the way if I'm just like every day of my life I wake up and I'm like, oh, I got bad knees, like my knees are so bad, and like will they get worse faster if I'm thinking that?
Yeah, so that's where it gets a bit dicey, like at least for me personally, because like I feel like this is where the suggestibility thing comes into play, where I was reading the book and they were saying some people had some knee surgeries where they went under and they had a knee surgery, but the people didn't actually do very much, but they ended up leaving the hospital being like, wow, my knee feels great, thanks for the surgery, doc. And the doc's like smirking like, I didn't do anything.
Right.
But
so it's like some malpractice.
Well, yeah, but it just goes to show the example that placebo could work for actual knee problems, like if you have like a meniscus trouble. But that's where at least my personal level of suggestibility starts to get a bit shaky. Like I have a tougher time believing something like that, and maybe that's why I'll be destined to have bad knees, because I just don't believe.
Okay, what about when I hear,
what I mean, though? Like that to me is like, ooh, I don't know about that one.
But do you think that your mental state could play a part in like how fast you heal, basically?
For sure, yes,
definitely.
for sure. And that's why like doctors, even if you develop cancer, they really try to enforce the idea that like if possible, we want you to have a positive attitude about this thing, because it really does help.
Right.
Oh, I was reading in a book. Wow, okay, I don't want to butcher this, so give me a second, but I believe a doctor said to this man, you have cancer and you have 6 months to live, or maybe it was 3 or 4. It was very like your late stage and this is terminal. And the man left the office thinking he had that amount of time to live, and then before the doctor saw him again, I don't know why the appointment was so spread out, but it was months later, the man had died.
Yeah.
And he died of a heart attack and did not have cancer.
Wow.
And the doctor said, did I kill that man by taking away hope? Because I told him he was going to die.
Yeah, I thought very possible, because like if you know you're about to die, or you know or you're expecting something bad to happen, like you go into a room and you know this is going to be bad small talk, or you go into a room and you feel like someone's going to physically assault you, like you go into a defensive mode, a mode that's preparing to like take for bad things to happen.
Yeah.
And that really reminds me of the example from that Man's Search for Meaning book, about how there was a bunch of the prisoners in the concentration camp that were they were very hopeful that by Christmas time they were going to be freed out of the concentration camp. But Christmas rolled around and nothing happened, and a lot of those people shortly after died because they lost the hope. But and then their immune systems just like kind of crashed, because stress does have a big impact on the immune system. And when they were really excited, oh, Christmas is coming, we're gonna get saved, their immune system might have been functioning like at a high level, but then they give up all hope, and now they're like,
and it's like a shock to the system. It's
a downhill thing.
When Sammy, when you said, if I say every day that I have bad knees, will my knees get worse? What I think of is the idea that maybe physically your knees won't, it's not like you can change the injury or like make it worse, but what I think of is that you'll be so in that negative mindset that it will alter just the way that you do things and what you do. And therefore you'll, like, if you go, I have bad knees, and then you don't go out running or walking or biking and you don't continue doing things, well, inevitably your body, your muscle mass will deteriorate. You'll start to be less flexible, and therefore that could make your knees worse because everything around it in your legs is now not being pushed to its potential, and you're not as healthy as you could be. And then a year later I see you and you go, yeah, my knees did get worse. But it's like, did they get worse because the injury's gotten worse, or did they get worse because every single day you woke up and said, I have bad knees, and restricted yourself from doing things that then did physically alter what happened in your knees?
That's trippy.
Yeah.
The one that I find also like mind bending is that what you just mentioned, Ollie, with the immune system. Because like, and then once you get into the thought of like if I'm stressed out, my immune system is gonna be bad, and then I get sick, and then it's like, don't stress out, and then that's making you more stressed out, and then you're like, bad cycle, and then it's just like you end up getting sick.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting with right now with COVID.
Right.
So the ironic thing is that if you're always worrying about COVID, you're actually going to be probably stressing your weakening your immune system, so that if you were to get COVID, you would be more likely to have a bad reaction. So you worrying about COVID is going to make it worse for you if you actually get COVID.
So when you guys feel stressed, because it's not like we will get to a perfect situation where you don't ever get stressed. When you feel stressed, what do you do to not ruminate in that and try to counteract it?
Yeah, sometimes it's difficult because it's like overpowering, but I think ideally this is what I would do, and I can't always do it, but it's something I guess you practice, and maybe by practicing it you're enhancing that circuitry so that you're going to be better at it in the future. But if you're feeling like some negative emotion, stress, feeling depressed, whatever, I feel like if you are able to be aware of the thoughts and the sensation of whatever negative feeling that you're having, like you have a stressful feeling or you have a depressive feeling, to be able to look at that with curiosity, in a sense, where you're questioning, like, where exactly do I feel that stress? Where exactly do I feel that depression? And what exactly does it feel like? So you're looking at it, and you're thinking about it with a lens of curiosity rather than putting it on a lens of judgment.
Yeah.
So instead of thinking, oh, I'm stressed, this sucks, why did that happen? Like, you're thinking about it like, I'm stressed. What does that exactly feel like, and where exactly do I feel that?
And what can I learn from it?
And I feel like that helps to start to relieve it, rather than if you're looking at it with like maybe a judgmental lens, you could be further keeping it going longer, like, or trying to getting more stressed out
too, because sometimes you go, oh, like, no, I can't be stressed right now, or I can't be sad right now, and you just go like, no, enough. Like, you try to like push it away, but what is in fact will help it, you'll get through it faster, is if you embrace it and get curious about it and find out what is causing that, and then doing something fun that you do like, or it's something that kind of offsets that. If you're stressed, well, then pull out your favorite mug and have a tea.
yeah No, that is legit though, like something that cues a positive response in you. So like, if you were feeling really, really down, and then me and Sammy turn on the TV and put on your favorite cartoon, that always,
that'd be shocking.
Yeah. that just every single time you see that show, it just you've wired in your mind, that show makes me feel good, and so like boom, in an instant we turn that on and you're like, okay, I feel a bit better now.
Yeah, because I think about stress sometimes is out of your control, and sometimes you can't, it's not quick fixes where you're stressed for an hour and then and then you think, oh yeah, well I'll just think myself out of that, or I'll get curious and I won't be stressed anymore. But what is in your control is little moments of joy you can create by you kind of find something that cues you for some happiness, because I think that recharges that side of you where you're able to maybe combat the stress a little bit better when you are feeling more yourself, or you have more moments of joy to reflect on and more positivity.
Right. And they say that when you're analyzing things too much, that can also kind of prevent you from getting the benefits of the placebo. Like if a doctor was to give you a medication and you start analyzing, like, I don't know, like, look at this looks kind of weird, like, I don't, like, I heard this, and you're just thinking about it a lot, which might actually be beneficial. Like, you don't want to be delusional and just be taking things and assuming they're going to be doing good things, but to a certain degree you won't be able to get the benefits if you're really analytical and not very suggestible. Like if you were to get, if I was to say like, oh, drink that water from that bottle over there, that's gonna make you sleep way better tonight.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're not a very suggestible person. You'd be like, no, that's nonsense.
Yeah.
But in that sense, if you were an extremely suggestible person and you're like, oh, really? Like, I'm going to drink that water and I'm going to have a great sleep tonight. And you actually do. You drink it and you're like, oh, this is going to be great. That could actually be something that happens. But most people aren't suggestible enough. And you don't want to become delusional enough, because it's important to actually think about things like rationally.
Right.
But the way I see it for like the analyzing situations is, you want to try to do your best to actually come out with the truth. But when it comes to the end of the scenario, the end of the thing, and you're not sure, or it's impossible to know what the actual truth is. Like, for example, let's say you were in a situation and somebody said, oh, that's a nice shirt. And you left there thinking, I can't tell if that was sarcastic or that was like a real comment. And you're analyzing it. Wait, the way they looked, it kind of was like that. And you're like, actually their body language kind of indicated they were saying it really was a nice shirt, but then they had that little smirk at the end that made me think it was fake. And you're really analyzing it, but at the end of the day you come to the conclusion, or you come to a kind of a dead end where you can't be certain. And this will happen with a lot of things where you can't be certain whether it's actually true or not. I think at that point you want to think which one is better, and it's better to assume that, oh, they were just complimenting me. They actually did like the shirt. Yeah. But I think sometimes it's hard to believe that, and you don't want to be delusional. But I'd say at least don't assume the negative one. So at best, you're assuming the positive out of the options. But if you think that's delusional to just be assuming the positive, I feel like at least don't assume the negative one, and then just be like, I don't know, and that's
just
it.
Be neutral. And
this is a fascinating one, because it's like a man is literally what he thinks kind of thing. And it's like, if you're like, I'm the coolest guy in school, then potentially you are. Like in your head, you know what I mean? And then in that sense, like, maybe like this guy is delusional, but it's like, to him, like, life is great, right? Because he's like, oh man, I'm the coolest guy in school. And maybe that's not necessarily the reality, but it's like, maybe he's better off being delusional.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I feel like maybe in the short term, being delusional can be better off because you'll feel great about yourself. But I feel like a lot of delusion can end up getting you in trouble. Right. So I feel like the ideal scenario is always try to find the truth, but also you might have a tendency to be hard on yourself and believe things that aren't certain to be true. Yeah. Don't do that. And if you can, try to have some positive visualization, or try to think, oh, actually, maybe this was a good thing, like thinking of it in a positive way. But I feel like delusion can be beneficial in the short term because you feel great about it. but you'll eventually run into a wall, I think, where you'll come face to face where it's like, oh, that's just not true.
Right.
You know what I mean? And yeah, it's hard to do, but the positive visualization, I feel like, is really beneficial. And in the book, they're also saying that trying to think in a compassionate way and trying to think with gratitude are also two good practices to get some your body kind of physically responding well. They said specifically compassion, like if you're thinking very like compassionately and kindly about other people, that can lead to the production of oxytocin. And that oxytocin, it kind of dims down or shuts down the part of the brain, the amygdala, which is responsible for anxiety and fear. Okay. So it's, in that sense, it's almost impossible to be anxious and fearful while you're also feeling compassionate and kind. The two almost just don't really work together.
You can't survive together. It's
almost like you can't be feeling bad about yourself and also be feeling gratitude. They just don't really work. So like if you're doing a practice where you're trying to take the time every day to be like, I'm gonna think of things that I'm grateful for, or you take the time to be to think of things that you're compassionate about, during those moments you'll actually find it very difficult to also be fearful, anxious, and feeling bad about yourself if you really are trying hard to be grateful and compassionate. They don't really they don't go together. It's hard. You can't really have both.
If you're in conflict with someone, or you're frustrated with family, friend, whoever, think about them, think about the best version of them and who they are, like a few great times that you've had with them, and that will help kind of ease your mind if you're like getting heated emotionally or something. If you're I don't want to say overreacting, but if you're reacting really from your emotion and not thinking rationally about that situation, if you think about that person at their best, it just helps. Like similar, like same thing, Ollie, just to put it in the context of interactions with others. That's how that works as well.
Yeah, and thinking that their intentions might not actually be what they end up doing. So like, or just thinking of them as this might get a little bit like go down a rabbit hole, but like if you're looking at it from like the free will perspective, a lot of people, they're just doing the best thing they can, and it's not necessarily, a lot of their actions and things aren't necessarily them choosing. So I feel like when you look at it from that perspective, it's easier to have compassion for them. Like they,
given the resources and knowledge and self-awareness and emotional intelligence they have, this is what they're able to decide or act out. That's an interesting topic to go into as well.
So I mean, this topic's like really, really interesting. I find.
I know. I feel like we have to do a part 2.
We could do a part 2. And we'll leave it at that. I think one more thing, just to kind of piece it all together and wrap it up. I think like we've said in like so many other podcasts, the meditation aspect is key, just to figure out what do I typically think, and what am I thinking, how am I feeling, and all these things, and then you piece it all together. And I heard like an analogy of like that relates to movie making. So Sammy, you might have a better idea if this is actually a good analogy just from making movies, but like if you are the director and you're the director of your own mind, you want to be aware of what everybody's doing. Like if you're a director on a movie set, you want to know like what everybody's doing and why they're doing that as well. So you could picture all the people on the movie set like your thoughts and emotions for the analogy, and you observing them are like a director. So the director wants to know, why is that lighting guy over there? What should he be doing? Why is he doing that? Why is that actor acting like that? Right. What do I want them to do?
And if somebody's horsing around, you want to put a stop to it immediately.
Yeah, exactly. Like, why is the sound guy like running over there? Like all that stuff, and you wanna have a perspective of the whole set, because you're kind of the director. Yeah, you are the director, and you want to be observing all of it. So in that sense, if you bring that analogy back to if that's you, the director, what are you not aware of? Are you not aware of certain things happening? Like you would not be aware of all the sound guys fooling around, horsing around over there. Like you just want to be aware of as much as possible, and aware of why are you thinking certain ways and why are you acting certain ways. Just because there's a reason for certain thoughts. If that makes sense. Does that make sense, kind of like that analogy?
Oh yeah, for sure,
because your past experiences impact what you react to and how you regulate yourself. And if in the past you always had to be startled every time you heard. And
I think sometimes you'll be like, you'll avoid certain maybe things in your head because your past experiences, you're like, oh, that's bad times. But I think it's better to be aware of everything. Right. Like, to go in the analogy, if you're like, this like sound guy, every time I confront him, we have a big argument. Yeah. So I'm just not going to do that. Right. But I think you can't ignore that situation either.
Right. And knowing why they're doing the things they are too. Like, you might notice a thought, or you might notice the lighting guy is shining the light like that, but you want to know, okay, why do I want him to shine the light like that? And then just like you would notice the thought, you think, like we were saying before with the metacognition, where you think about that thought. Why did I have that? Why is that good? Why should I maybe be thinking differently? Why is that possibly not true? And why is that lighting guy doing the wrong thing? Why did I wanted him to shine it on the actor? Like, yeah, why did I hire him? Yeah, we should get rid of him, fire the whole squad. Yeah, but that's yeah,
getting deep in the analogy here.
So hopefully that analogy didn't get too deep and confusing, but yeah, we can wrap it up there. So thanks for listening.
Thank you.
And goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.